Hey guys, so today I wanted to do a video on my Constellation because Fleet Week's coming up and also a ship sale is going to be going on at the same time. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be hanging on to this, and I wanted to get one last video in with it if I end up switching to something else. So specifically, I'm going to be upgrading the guns, or at least changing them out. We're going to see if it's an upgrade, because the Constellation comes default with 4 gimbaled size 4 weapons, but you can change out 2 of those for fixed size 5s, so I wanted to see what that ends up being like. So the reason I'm doing this isn't because I've had issues with the firepower that the Constellation has. It's been fine for all of the missions, and I'll do everything from the ECN alerts to the crime stat level 4. So for going against NPCs, I've not had any issues. But as far as I can tell from the research I've done, the Constellation currently has the highest pilot available DPS in the game, which is kind of surprising when you consider all the quite capable fighters that are currently in the game. But also, you have to consider, first of all, the maneuverability means you can't really land a ton of that on target, and that's not including missiles or anything like that. So these are the 2 lasers that we're going to be replacing basically the smaller version, the size 4 version of this. And if you're going to do this yourself, make sure you only buy 2, because at the moment you can't switch out the lower 2 gimbaled mounts on the Constellation. So yeah, as you see, I'm going to go ahead and equip them on my ship right now, but the slots for the gimbals on 2 of the weapon mounts aren't accessible. So I'm not sure if this is intended or not, but at least as of 3.9 you cannot switch out the lower ones for size 5s. And you don't want to be buying extra ones of these because they're 30,000 alpha UEC each, so it's a pretty sizable investment, and you wouldn't want to have 2 useless ones sitting around. But that's about all we need here, so I'm going to go ahead and leave ArcCorp, and then we can get to some testing to see how effective they are. Okay, so here I'm using a really useful website. I'll have it linked below. And basically I showed what this change in weaponry does to the damage per second of the Constellation, and also showed the damage per second of some ships that might be competition. So you can see for the Constellation, this change brought it up to 3,300 damage per second. And as you can see, I went through quite a few other combat focused ships, and none of them have that high of a damage per second. And again, I'm not saying that the Constellation is the best ship for combat, because it definitely is not, since this doesn't take into account turrets or missiles or being able to land the shots, since the Constellation has terrible maneuverability. And then also eventually there will be either like computer controlled turrets. For your turrets, you can have your ships computer control them, or you can hire NPCs to man the turrets. So this will be different in a few updates, but as of right now, I believe that the Constellation has the highest damage per second available to the pilot of any ship. Alright, so these are the new guns, and as you can see, they're basically a bigger version of the Rhino laser repeater that comes with this ship for stock, and this is a human for scale. And then these are the lower ones, the size 4 guns. And that's how they look when they're firing. Pretty much just a scaled up version, as you can tell. Okay, so now we're going to move on to some combat. So this is just a Cutlass, and this is using the new setup with nothing overclocked or anything. So I didn't really have much footage of what it was before I equipped these guns, but I noticed a bit of a difference in the time to kill on that Cutlass, but in terms of dealing with the Buccaneers, this didn't really seem to speed anything up, which I was expecting since the size 5s aren't gimbaled, so it's going to be a lot harder to land the shots. But it didn't really seem to be that much worse than usual, considering the Constellation's maneuverability and everything. So I think, at least against NPCs, the fixed aspect of the size 5s isn't too big of a deal, since they don't really do that great of a job of dodging yet. Okay, so now I'm going to go after a Caterpillar. This is one of the crime stat level 3 bounties. and I still have not overclocked the lasers at all, so this is just stock. And yeah, you can see at range it does a pretty good job with fighters, and especially when they're flying at you in a straight line, it's pretty easy to land your shots. And then when I'm going after the Caterpillar, this is one of the ships where I could notice the difference more than others, since it's pretty big, and having those fixed guns isn't that big of an issue in terms of hitting the target, and the extra damage helps take it down a little bit quicker. But overall, I wouldn't really recommend this upgrade, since it's 60,000 AUEC to save maybe 5 seconds, and only really on the bigger ships. And so if you want these for PvP reasons or just have the best possible damage output, then go for it. But if you're just looking at it from running missions, or even if you think you're going to be taking out mostly fighters, then I would stick with the gimbal, since it's a lot easier to hit stuff. And then as you can see, I just overclocked my weapons, and we're going to go ahead and take out another Caterpillar so you can see the difference. And it does take it out pretty fast once they're overclocked, but also with the size 4s, it did take it out pretty fast as well. So it is an improvement against these larger ships, but I don't know that it's worth 60,000 credits. Alright, and now I'm doing a mission and taking out a Constellation. This is without overclocking the lasers. Okay, and same with the Caterpillar, even though it's not that hard to hit the Constellation. The difference in having the size 5 lasers versus the size 4s doesn't really make that big of a difference for me. And now this is with them overclocked. It does take it out pretty quickly. But again, not that much more than the size 4s would have done. Okay, and now this is a crime stat level 4 mission, and these always seem to have Valkyries, and this was one of the only times when I felt with this 4 size 4s that I could use a little bit more firepower. So this is me doing it without overclocking the guns, which I would never even try with the 4 size 4 setup, and it took it out reasonably quickly, but it's not that big of a difference, and it still was slow enough that the supporting fighters that the Valkyrie had with it were able to catch up with me, and then it was annoying to clean them up afterwards. So yeah, that took a while, so I went ahead and just skipped that part. Alright, and now this is doing that same sort of mission with the guns overclocked, and it does take out the Valkyrie pretty quickly. So if you do a bunch of level 4 crime stat missions and you're just really annoyed with the stock setup, then maybe you'd want to upgrade to the size 5s. But other than that, there's really not much reason to do so, unless you just want to say you have the highest pilot DPS. But yeah, as you can see, overclocking it with the size 5s made it so that I could take out the Valkyrie and have a decent amount of time to shoot at the supporting craft before they had gotten to my ship. Yeah, so overall, it's not that big of an improvement. I don't think I would spend the 60,000 credits, but it is kind of cool just to have some of the highest pilot available DPS that is currently in the game. Okay, and then I wanted to give a few thoughts overall on the Constellation, because a lot of people seem to want to rework for it, and I definitely agree that there could be some aspects that could be changed to make it better. I think the easiest thing that they could do, and what I would like, is just to make it handle a bit better and be a bit faster in a straight line, because it's got these massive engines, and it seems like it would be quite a fast ship, but it's not very fast, and the maneuverability is pretty terrible right now. So yeah, that's what I'd like to improve. But also, I showed that view from behind. It seems like they could go for something similar to what the Cutlass Black had, and make this ship a little bit wider so it could fit a bit more cargo, and do a few things on the inside, like move the bulkhead near the pilot area up a little bit so that there's more space in the crew area for item storage or more food prep area or anything. Yeah, so hopefully the Constellation receives a little bit of attention with a few little changes to improve it a little bit now that it's going to have some competition in its size class, with the Mercury Star Runner coming out probably sometime soon, maybe even in this upcoming Fleet Week. But overall, it's a pretty good ship. And as far as I know right now, it's the ship with the most amount of weaponry available to the pilot. So it's pretty cool, and with a few tweaks, I think it could be a really great ship and deserving of the iconic status that it has in the Star Citizen universe. So that's it for the video. Maybe not as useful as some of my other ones, but I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please leave a like and maybe even subscribe. Thanks.